it's just so powerful to have that foundation. And the way we teach our franchisees is, of course we want to grow the top line, but we're looking at your bottom line with you. And that's so important because we know that's what's going to drive growth. And I honestly think that's been the secret to our success.
This is the PMP Industry Insider Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome out to another episode of the PMP Industry Insider Podcast, where we look at what is changing in the industry and we take you to the front lines to those that are driving those changes. As always, I'm Donnie, Shelton, owner of Triangle Home Services, which has Triangle Pest as well as Triangle Lawn. And with me is my compadre in arms, the world famous yet highly unavailable. I shouldn't say that. Dan, would you like to say good morning? Introduce our topic and our most exciting guest.
Yes. So Dan Gordon, PCO Bookkeepers, Turf Books, and PCO M&A specialists. We specialize in CFO services for the pest and lawn industry, as well as exit planning services. And things are heating up in the lawn care area, not just the season, but also a lot of M&A, and just a real exciting time to be involved. And we could not have a better guest. This guest, she is part of the lawn care industry. We are pleased to be joined by Jennifer Lemcke. She's the CEO of Weed Man and Turfbot. And Jennifer has been in the lawn care industry with Weed Man for more than 30 years, working alongside of her dad and her husband, first as franchisees and later as the franchisor. So she is the CEO of Weed Man. And get this, Donnie, Weed Man is running, I think, around $308.6 million in annualized revenue with 790 units. And she has earned a number of accolades, including Women Entrepreneur of the Year from NALP and Industry Leadership Award from Lawn and Landscape Magazine. Hey, Jennifer, welcome. We are so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, Before we get into this, I have a small confession to make. So we like to do confessions here on the podcast. So let me just start with that. So
it cleanses us.
It does. So Jennifer, funny story. We have a lawn division now at Triangle. We haven't always had a lawn division. It's fairly new. But before I had a lawn division and I lived in Holly Springs, I will never forget this as long as I live. It's like 7:00 in January. It's freezing cold outside. North Carolina. I mean, it's obviously if people in Canada.
I was going to say Holly Springs.
North Carolina.
Right. Okay. So for North Carolina, it's cold. Like legit. It's like in the 20s, right? And someone's knocking at my door. I'm like, who in the hell is at my door? It's 7:00 night in January because it's dark, right? And it was a door team, and I bought Weed Man. And I had Weed Man for many, many years because I got sold right on the. I mean, I was like, yeah, that sounds great, no problem. And so obviously now, we can jab about this later, but Triangle does my lawn now, in case you're wondering. But anyway, so no, disappointed. No, they did a great job, by the way. They did it. And so welcome to the podcast. We're so, like Dan said, we're very excited to have you here. And I think our listeners are going to get a lot out of your perspective and your thoughts and definitely your experience. And we were having a big conversation before the podcast started. Let's talk a little bit about your background just briefly, just kind of bring listeners up to speed on who you are, how you got in the industry, and kind of what you're doing now. I think that would be good. I mean, obviously, Dan went through the bio, but just kind of your take on, where you're at and kind of where you're going.
Sure. I have an elevator speech on this one because I get asked this a lot. And really the story starts with my dad. When I was 16 and he decided he was working for corporate America. He was at Union Carbide and he decided he wanted to kind of go out, and the entrepreneurial bug was at him, and he was, considering all kinds of things. We looked at retail, we looked at restaurants, and our neighbor owned a Weed Man franchise, and it was in a small suburb town called Ajax out of Toronto, and invited us over for dinner just on a whim one Sunday evening. And my dad disappeared down in his basement. And he said, wow, if he can do these kind of profit margins with 2 trucks, imagine if I were to scale this out. So he started to look at Weed Man very seriously. And he ended up buying a franchise. He says that we did have a family meeting about this. I don't remember the invitation, but he said we did. And he decided to pull the trigger, and we ended up being one of the first franchisees in Hull, Quebec. So from that, he did very well. Then he bought 7 more territories in the Montreal area. Not sure if you're familiar with Canadian geography, but a large metropolitan area. And then from there, that's where my husband and I decided to join the business, and a few of our friends and family came on board, and we started to do Weed Man acquisitions and became one of the largest multi-unit franchisees of the founder, Des Rice, and Brenda. So things were going really, really well with we'll call them corporate stores. And then we approached Des, and we bought the master rights to the US to be the franchisor. We had, really built a lot of systems throughout the years. Being a multi-unit, we were the first to $1 million, the first to 20 million, the first to 30 million. So we had to develop a lot of different systems along the way, which, at times we probably outpaced the franchisor in what we needed as far as a franchisee. So
they loved you guys.
Yeah. Took that package and brought it over to the US. And then Brenda retired. Des passed away years ago. Brenda retired in 2018, and we bought the worldwide rights. And that's kind of where things, that's the story. Quickly, sorry if I went on a little too long, but that's it.
That's fantastic.
In a nutshell.
Yeah. So from your perspective, you've been doing it for a while. How are things the same in the lawn care industry, and how are they different from when you joined? And we've got a bunch of friends and clients in Canada. Canada lawn care is very challenging compared to most of the U.S., although we seem to be in certain states getting more like the Canadian regulations. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I got a chance to see a few of the questions you were going to ask today before, and I was giving it some thought, and I thought, you know what? The things that are the same are also the things that are very different, and I'll explain. I would say customers' expectations are probably the same. I started when I was 16 years old, and now if I think about it and you strip it away, they want green grass, weed-free, insect-free, and that's the ultimate product that they want. And the way we deliver it, the way they buy it, the way we communicate with them has changed. But in the end, in the crux, that really hasn't changed. And, I think sometimes if you lose sight of that, you kind of lose your way, and a lot of activity that's been going on with mergers and acquisitions and stuff. Hopefully we're not going to lose that, because to the crux of what the customer wants. And we're in the midst of a big project. We're redoing our customer portal. So, along the lines of how people are buying and communicating. So in doing that, we went out and we interviewed a bunch of customers, old, new customers, and, quite a handful of these interviews. And I read through all of them, and it made me think, when I saw that question that you were going to ask that, it's like, we kind of lost sight of that a little bit. We lost sight of communicating with the customer and the way we communicate. We just thought the same old should still apply now. And, they book on in January, and in Canada, sometimes we don't go see them till May. Well, now that doesn't really fly anymore. There's so many ways that we can be talked to, through email, through newsletters, through text. And that was something we had missed the boat on, and as we were working on this project. So I'm glad you asked that question, because it's certainly the expectations of what a customer wants is the same, but how we get there is different. Very, very different.
Good. Good. So let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you're facing with Weed Man, and you know, I mean, this could go anywhere. You know, obviously, everyone has challenges, and I think you get in a room full of owners, and this could be, I think, any kind of trade industry. My guess is that they're probably going to be saying the same things when it comes to issues and problems, but but I'll let you kind of like, let's just talk a little bit about like what are some of the greatest challenges that you guys are facing now, and then what are you doing to try to overcome them?
Yeah, well, it's funny. If you were to ask me 3 years ago when COVID hit, my dad retired March 1st, 2020, and then the world, the world shut down March 16th. So it was an incredible challenge to be a leader at that time, because I don't know, there was no manual telling you what to do and what not to do. Mm-hmm. It was just chaos for me, and a lot of sleepless nights and tons of hours. And in the end, what got us through is relationships, and the relationships we have with our franchisees, and communicating and over communicating and being there and being available day and night for people that were, you know, on the ledge and not sure what was going to happen. And, you know, in the end, the service industry did very, very well through COVID. So it was all good, but there was times where we didn't know. There was a lot of unknown. So as a leader, that was probably one of my most challenging times is how to, you know, rein all this in. As an industry, you know, as we move through COVID and some of the supply chain issues that we've seen and continue to see in some areas, pricing increases, where they're going to go, where the market's going to go, and being able to work through that with the franchisees. We're very, very lucky. We have really strong relationships with the franchisees. I don't want to sound corny, but it's a family. It truly is a family. And they know no matter what, we've got their best interests. So when we saw that the supply chain was going to become an issue, we went out and talked to every supplier, and that's where my husband really is involved in that, and talked to all the suppliers and really made sure that we secured the product. It wasn't necessarily, are we going to pay too much? It's getting the product and making sure we can continue to deliver the service that to our customers. So that was a pivotal piece. And for us, working alongside our suppliers, it was just, the suppliers were amazing, you know, and they were part of a lot of the solutions through COVID, whether it be payment plans, you know, just all kinds of things. And I think some companies forget that they can be your biggest ally. The other thing we did throughout the whole COVID, and we continue to do actually on a monthly basis, is I'm on a call with our largest competitors every month. Still to this day, we get on and we talk about legislative issues. We talk about market issues. What are we doing? We're truly friends. So we do that. But throughout COVID, I mean, almost daily when it first started, I was talking to CEOs of Nutrilon, and a couple of the other ones. Lawn Doctor, our biggest competitor. And, you know, we really rallied together and kind of like, what are you doing with this? And so we helped each other through it. Today, I would say, and last year, I think we're seeing a little bit of a transition right now was labor for the franchisees. Yeah. Labor has been,
that's everyone's problem.
You guys are completely unique, by the way, just, so yeah,
that's everyone's problem.
You know, but I'll say how we helped our franchisees and continue to help them is probably not as a traditional as you would think. And it was literally suck it up, Buttercup, pull up your pants, and let's look at this. Mm-hmm. You know, we're not right now. You can't just look at the industry and what we're paying in our industry. You got to look at the Amazons and the Walmarts and the delivery services. What are they doing? What are they doing differently? And it was interesting because I decided to apply. I went out and I applied to a bunch of different companies, and I saw how quickly they were responding. And
so wait. You applied for warehouse help or something at Amazon.
to see how quickly they would get through.
I love it.
So you gotta understand who your true competition is, right?
Yeah.
It's like at this point, if we don't need to outsmart the lawn care company next door. We need to outsmart Amazon, and they're fast. They're lightning fast. So if you think the days of asking for people to apply, waiting a week to go through resumes, and then going and calling them for an interview, they're gone.
Yeah, I was gonna say those folks
They're
are gone.
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's left is not what you want to hire.
Right.
The good ones are gone. So you got to be faster. You got to be quicker. You got to be outsmart them. You got to do like you do for getting customers. How do you market for customers? You got to think the same way. And that's something that some of the old guard are kind of stuck in their ways, and you're going to lose the game.
Let me tell you something, Jen. You and I are so much on the same wavelength right now. I tell people recruiting is like marketing. It just has different clothes on. It absolutely is. And we, so much so that this is just for our listeners. It's just an idea to do. And it's worked quite well for us. There's a thing called Form Reactor that we use for our customers. So if a customer goes on a website and they submit a service request, immediately a phone call is initiated to the company and, hey, we got a lead, press 1. Then that connects that call back to that customer. So if you submit a form within 10 seconds, you're probably going to get a phone call, and it's automated. We've done that with our recruiting site for that exact same reason. What you just said was that, you need to contact them immediately. There's no waiting. And so anyway, that's 100%. Amen, sister, on that one. So, but we got that idea from marketing. Right. I mean, we've done that in marketing for a few years. Right. Like, we've got to get faster. And so, yes, I agree. Keep going. Yeah. Sorry.
No. It's so true. So you can sit and talk about the issue and gripe and, it's me, I can't find good people, or you can get out there and figure out what you need to do. And those are the companies that win. So, in this, the devil's in the details. We've got a lot of people that reach out to us, and you think about it, and they're on Indeed. Let's take Indeed as an example, and they're filling out their forms, and they're filling out multiple forms, especially with this quick apply. And then we try and call them back, and they're not answering our calls. Well, a lot of them are working, so they're not. So you got to text, call, email. Everything now is fast, and you got to do it 3-4 different ways and get to them. So it's innovation is so important. You got to change with the times. You can sit and well about it, like I said, or get better at it. And the other thing that we had to do is we had to increase our pay structure. I mean, we were outdated in a lot of markets. So, doing a full analysis of what that looks like and where you need to be in the marketplace, and then showcasing franchisees that the retention rates are high on employee retention. What are they doing? What's different? Pay is a piece of it. Culture is another piece of it. And you got to make sure that you're creating an atmosphere that you want to make it a destination job, right? So to do that, you got to make it fun. You got to pay well, and you got to do things maybe a little differently than you used to do.
So go ahead. I was just going to say, just to recap there real quick, so if you're listening, number one, and I'm just summarizing here, is treat recruiting like marketing. That's number one, is like you with the same intensity. Number two is to realize that when you treat it like marketing, you're going to have to respond very, very quickly. And then I would say number three, so there's treat it like marketing, respond quickly. And number three is that, you really need to pay attention and focus on the culture, like your pay and your culture, because it's just, I agree with you. At the end of the day, the labor pool is decreasing. And I'm talking from a macro level, and it's more competitive. It absolutely is more competitive. So to sit around, you can, like you said, you can sit around and complain about it, or you can do something about it. So Dan, I didn't mean to step on you.
Yeah, no problem. So that kind of leads me to the next topic. So you're going to go out and look at market forces on labor. In my experience, lawn care and pest control, the P&L is a formula, right? And the formula is the labor, materials, and all the rest of the cost of goods sold for gross margin, and sales, marketing, and G&A, right? And what we saw is during COVID, or as COVID moved on and wage inflation kicked in, that really messed with the formula, right? And messed with profitability. So the immediate reaction that you needed to do was to raise prices, okay? And so that you can put it back into the formula. So if I'm paying $15 an hour and, I want that to be, a 20% labor rate, then I've got to be at $75. But if I now pay $20, now I got to be at $100, right? So that we saw a lot of clients raise prices and do it successfully. But one of the things that you do is this zero-based budgeting, and also considering that wage inflation. Tell us a little bit more about that. For a company your size, you've got to have accurate budgeting. How does all that work?
Yeah, so that's a loaded question. There's so many different facets to that. So, we really, for sure, the technician and, the local labor. But one of the things that we did, and I'll get to the zero-based budgeting afterwards, is we had already started this before COVID, thank goodness. We went virtual with our marketing. So we don't have marketing rooms. We used to have, in some offices, you'd have 50, 100 people in one room, and recruiting all those people, it was just becoming crazy. And of course, if you think about it, your top 25 sales people look very different than your bottom 25%. So we started to analyze that. And as labor, became more and more of an issue, going virtual with the sales. So our sales managers, our salespeople are all over the place. Like there's no bricks and mortar. We may have a few franchisees that still have people coming in, but by and large, it's all virtual. COVID forced us to, which we never thought, was to look at the admin to go virtual. And we've done that very successfully. So we have, for us, our labor expenses went, for sure, they went up at the local technician level. But because of our recruiting now became, well, I won't say worldwide, but let's say North American wide, I've got, if I look at Canada, I've got maybe people up in Saskatchewan working in our Toronto branch, and I've got people in Newfoundland working in our Toronto branch. And that's, what you have to pay administrative people that live in Toronto and work from Toronto is a lot more than you have to out there. So looking at those types of opportunities and becoming very strategic on that, technology was a huge factor, and we're lucky we have a.
So you're redistributing the costs, but keeping the formula intact.
Right. Now, did we raise prices? Of course, we had to raise prices, and some franchisees, because we don't dictate what they, each market is different, and each owner needs to do a market analysis and figure out where their pricing needs to be. And I would say a lot of our owners did not do a good job with keeping pace of increases, and
no one does.
Yeah, people are scared, and once they do it, they realize it's not so bad. It's
not so bad.
The reaction isn't so bad,
right? And it's how you do it too. We do it in steps with our customer bases, and that you can do a whole course on how to manage your database. But so I would say that was very impactful for us, is to show our franchisees how to take technology and take it to your advantage, go virtual, and then look at really beefing up the technical side, and people that we don't have a choice. I mean, they have to be and have to go into the office and then take their trucks from there. So that's a piece of it. And then zero-based budgeting, a lot of companies out there, I would say, well, there's a lot that don't budget at all, but most companies do incremental budgeting. And, I want to grow 10%. So I'm going to look at my, historical and bump it up 10% or whatever the margins they want to maintain.
So real quick, I just want to pause, just for our listeners, can you guys just quickly, I know what zero-based budget is, but let's just, for our audience, let's just define what that really means, like that term.
Well, in its most simplistic form is it's zero. We have nothing. We pretend that the past didn't exist. We take a peek at it because there's trends, but we pretend it doesn't exist. So we build our customer base with these assumptions every year. We don't say we're going to grow by 10% and just kind of back into it. We say, okay, well, our renewals. Historically, we know what we've renewed at. We have X amount of files at the end of last year, and we're going to assume that we're going to get that. So when we're having discussions on retention rates, we're talking points of a percentage. That's where the discussion's not, we're going to go from 75 to 80% retention rate. I mean, and that a lot of companies do that. They have no idea what their true retention rate is. They measure it differently year over year. So, the crux of it is to measure things exactly the same and then start off and say, okay, we have a blank slate. We have 0 customers.
So to be clear, it's you. Okay. So you have your retention. I mean, you have your current customer database. You've factored out what you anticipate to be retention. And that's attrition. What you use to your attrition. Right. And then that's what you consider to be, this is what we have in order to budget for next year. We're not gonna, I call that living on the curve, right? I'm going to grow 25%. So let me budget that extra revenue in as far as like for expenditures. Just to be clear, is that
no, yeah. And then we go to the next bucket. So we say, okay, old customers, how are we going to do on old customers? So we're going to do a marketing campaign to all of our old customers. And this is what that's going to look like. I know how many files I have. I know historically what my decision rate is and my closing rates are. And I'm going to build a team and know exactly how many salespeople I'm going to have to do to get these calls done. And that number changes every year. So then we look at that and we say, okay, this is what we're going to get from the old customer bucket. Then we have a lot of people that have reached out to us, or we've reached out to them. We've tapped them on the shoulder and said, hey, do you want lawn care? And they said no, but we gave them a quote. So they're in our database. And then we really focus in on what we're going to do with that piece of our database and then figure that out. We know a decision rate. And the beauty for us is we have all our franchisees across North America. So we can look at the top 25 and see what they're closing at. We know exactly their decision rates, their closing rates, what percentage of a total file they're getting. So we are able to use those numbers to really budget out section by section. And then once we're done that piece, we then align expenses with this new income from sales. So it's not just we're going to increase by 25%. We're going to look at, we know our average price in each bucket. We know when we typically bring them on. We've got algorithms that'll say, if your OP file, based on your historical last 10 years, you brought your old prospect file on like this. Well, this is how they're going to come in to your company. So really understanding the numbers is probably, I would say, the key to our success.
So let's talk about the old customers, because most companies that I know will send out their prepay letter, and if they don't get a response, they'll just go out and start doing the work. And there's certain regulations that in certain states that you can and can't do that. But you treat your old customers as a new sale. Is that what I'm hearing? Or
so we auto renew. We do continuous service of our current, and we define that very, very define on what that looks like. And then anybody that for whatever reason wasn't with us the previous year, we do campaigns, specific campaigns to them.
I got you. I thought we were talking old, meaning existing customers that are going to go next year. Okay, so so the cancel list. So then tell us about the expense side. Okay, we've got, we're going to dial into the revenue, and the beauty of recurring revenue is that you can, you've got these 3 buckets, the predictability, the route work, the renewal work, and then the new sales. And if you can dial those in, you can get pretty close. But what do you do about your on the expense side? Is that a formula or
So then based on when we're going to bring on our customers, we calculate out how much fertilizer we're going to use based on calibration rates, different applications. All of our products are essentially done. Once you got the income from sales done, then it feeds into, and I mean, our business plan is second to none. It's an unbelievable spreadsheet, and you plug it in and it literally brings it across to your direct expense. And then you figure out how many trucks you're going to need, employees, and we factor in redundancy, bench strength, whatever you want to call it. We know that if you need X amount of trucks out there, you need to hire X amount of people. So that's all factored in. And so it's an incredibly detailed business plan. And then we take that, and we actually now have taken this and formalized it into 10-year plans. So we're able now to share with our, with a few assumptions, what their 10-year will look like based on this year's budgeting. And we continue to do that with our franchisees. In fact, I just spent the last couple of days with a franchise doing their 10-year plan with them. And it's just so powerful to have that foundation. And the way we teach our franchisees is, of course we want to grow the top line, but we're looking at your bottom line with you. And that's so important because we know that's what's going to drive growth. And I honestly think that's been the secret to our success. And then from the business plan, all of our systems flow from that. And what I mean by that, like if we've got an income from sale and we're tracking it with these different buckets, I mentioned a few, we then take that and we have built what we call a sales analysis program. And it takes the data from the business plan and puts it into this. And we share that every week with all the franchises in the network. And they can see where they are comparatively to their peers, but also comparatively to their budget. So if they're behind, now we're able to say there's a gap here. What are we going to do to catch up? Instead of waiting at the end of the season and saying, oh, darn it, we didn't make it. We can be alongside them and say, hey, if you continue with this trend, you're not going to get there. So we either need to think.
At corporate, you're looking at each franchise each month, not just their, we've done some work with some franchises in the past, and some are good and some aren't. And a lot of them are just really interested in their royalty, right? So what are you doing? It sounds to me like, the royalty will take care of itself if you do all of these things and coach them. And so it sounds like you're very involved in your franchisees' business.
Very, very involved. In fact, sometimes I'm sitting there at 10 o'clock at night looking at numbers and I'm thinking, well, they're probably not looking at this. Right. So I need to dial back sometimes. But
that's why you are where you are. And
I guess. I just, you know what? The devil's in the details. I said it earlier. We're in lawn care. We're not, I know it sounds maybe sophisticated. We're getting there, and the industry is getting more and more sophisticated. But in the end, this industry is not run from a boardroom. This industry is down in the weeds, pun intended. Mm-hmm. And that's where you win, right? You win in the details. You win in the gaps. And I call them gaps, but really those are where the opportunity sits. So understanding that, and I mean, it's in my blood, right? I grew up in the industry. So I've been on the lawns, I've telemarketed, I've door knocked, I've done applications, I've done every position in the company. So I understand it. I get it.
So moving right along to what the future looks like, it looks like you've invested in a company or a TurfBot, which is the robotic mowing. And at first, I didn't realize. I have a friend who got involved with it, and it just seemed like we're way, way ahead of the curve. But it was explained to me how you're doing it, and it seemed like a pretty neat thing. Can you tell us about robotic mowing, and do you think it's a feasible business for now, for the future? What do you think about that?
Yeah, good question. So we've been testing it now for a few years in 3 key markets. Last year, we went into 10 markets. All of them are Weed Man franchisees. And really, we want to capitalize on our database. We service about 650,000 customers across North America. We understand how to market to them. I just talked about that. So for us, we wanted to look at and we're a franchisor. So we're looking at all kinds of home services. TurfBot just kind of fell on our lap. So in looking at it, how do we capitalize on these customers? And it's kind of a like business, right? There's so many people that are doing lawn cutting and lawn maintenance. So it made sense for us to look at this. But the margins that you see in lawn care, and I know in pest control as well, is not necessarily the same margins in landscaping and lawn cutting, right? And they're different. I won't say which way, but they're different. So we didn't want to just get into the industry. We wanted to do it in a way that was different. And the robotics came to us, reading a few articles in some of the trade magazines, and we came upon Robin, and which are great. They're doing some great things. The interesting part about it, this concept is not new to the world. I mean, Europe is got millions of robots sold across Europe. It's new to North America, and the landscapes in Europe are very different than the ones in North America. So I think R&D, for this to be a truly viable concept in North America, we need to get more R&D and more testing done in the North American marketplace. Some of the robots that we were working with are great. They're great, but they have their challenges. The wiring and the different climates here in North America poses a challenge to some of this wiring that you have to do to contain the robot on the lawn, especially up in the north where people are plowing the snow and you're cutting wires, and causes some issues when you're trying to reinstall it the next season. So I would say right now, is it viable for the future? I think this is going to be the future. I really do. I feel like technology is just maybe a step behind where it needs to be. We need to be wireless. It needs to be GPS. And it's getting there. It's getting there on the large industrial lots. And the reason it's there for the larger lots is you have visibility to satellites. Where in the homeowner's lawn, you don't necessarily have visibility. The robot has to have visibility to be able to get the GPS coordinates, right? So that causes some issues. So I think they're refining technology. You're seeing it in Europe. It's coming to North America. So, and then as far as marketing the service, it's been a bit of a challenge because it's not like we're coming out and we're marketing a new brand. We're marketing a whole new concept. We're going to mow your lawn, but with a robot, and you have to explain it's like the Roomba, and you got to explain.
So that's that whole route. So the way it was explained to me is the way it's going to look is somebody's going to come up with a truck, and he's going to let loose 20 lawnmowers in the neighborhood, and he's going to operate like a video game. Right. Let a video game. And then it was explained to me the other day that it's kind of like the vacuum, the Amazon vacuum or whatever, like I have in my house. It just sits in a rack, and periodically it comes out and vacuums, and it seems to work great. Is that kind of the way it's going to work?
Exactly the way it's.
You're just going to rent the equipment, and then how does the hedge?
We own the equipment in our model. We own the equipment, and it's our employee. We've dropped off our employee, and it just happens to live at your house. And then we wire it to keep it contained, and then we go out once a month and maintain it, and make sure the mowers are sharpened. If there's errors, sometimes some errors, it's easy for the homeowner to just kind of redirect it, and it's all good. Other errors, we got to deploy somebody to go out and see it. So we're in 10 markets. We had last year, we had over, I think it was close to 750 robotic mowers across 10 cities in the US. We're the largest purchaser of mowers in North America. So for us, was that a success? I mean, marginal for us. We wanted a lot more. We wanted to double that out in the marketplace, but it was a good first year being tested in 10 markets. Our goal is to be about 1,500 this year. So double where we were at last year.
You're way ahead of the curve, way ahead of the curve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people would say, wow, you're doing awesome. And it's like, yeah, we're doing okay. We're okay.
It's a test, but it's going well.
It's a test. It's going well. And the partners that we've chosen to work alongside us during this test are really good. There's some people with couple of them had landscaping experience, which we wanted that to bring that. We had others that had zero landscaping experience, just Weed Man experience. We wanted that. So just to test all kinds of different things. And honestly, we have been really lucky. Our partner at Weed Man, Site One, has been our best distributor. We spend tons of money with Site One. So when they found out we were going into robotics, they raised their hand and said, we want to partner with you and we want to do this alongside you. So they've been awesome, absolutely wonderful. So big shout out to Site One. Sorry if I'm not allowed to do that, but that
you're
is
absolutely allowed to do it.
Yeah, they were.
We get to do whatever we want here.
There we go. They have been really great partners for us. Yeah. They've said, if you guys are doing this, then we want to be involved in it and we're going to support you however way you need it. And, Husqvarna now is really stepped up and they're just trying to figure out how they're going to come to market. So now, we've hooked in, I think, with the right people right now at Husqvarna, and they're really helping us and they're going to help us with R&D and close the loop on, we're seeing these errors come up a lot. What are we going to do? How are we going to modify the robot to make it easier?
So I'm a customer. I say, listen, I want you to take care of my lawn. You're going to say, okay, we're going to install this robot, and it's going to have like a place
an
where it
invisible
parks,
fence,
and then it goes, but what about the hedges? What about the trimming? What about all of that? How do I get a complete landscape service that I had,
right?
Old technology.
So for Turfbot, we wouldn't do the hedges and the trees. That would be the landscaping. And some of the franchises might do that, but not as part of Turfbot. They might have their other landscaping company do that or sub that piece out. So, but we would do trimming of the lawn, edging of the lawn, anything with the lawn, we would do that as part of the service.
So does the robot do the edging, or do you need?
No, somebody will go out twice a month and they'll do that for the homeowner.
But he could fly through it because the lawn
right.
is already done. Okay.
Gotcha. Right. Yeah. And it's surprisingly enough, not many of our customers do. It's less than 20%, depending on the market, that add that service on. So it's really interesting. We can get the robot, if wired properly, we can get the robot right to the edge of the lawn. Where you kind of get into issues, I'm getting too technical, is if it rains and there's a little bit of a slope, it'll slide off. So you gotta know the angles. It's an art to install these things. It's not a science, it's an art.
Gotcha. That's all right though. Technology will catch up. It's only a matter of time. Yeah. So I love it. Yeah. Well, Jennifer, look, we did not get, I think we got to like half.
Well, let's go for this last one.
Last thing,
this is terrific. So looking ahead in terms of the growth, you said becoming a $500 million company is possible in the next 4 years. And then within a decade, you'd be the number one lawn care company, which would mean surpassing True Green. Are we allowed to say that, Donnie? Yes, we are. At a $1.5 billion company, what does that path look like, and where does the growth come from?
So one of the brands that we didn't talk about that we did add, and we gave it to our franchisees for free, it was a Mosquito Hero. And we said to the Weed Man, we're going to add this service. We're going to brand it like it's its own service. We're going to have different vehicles. And that's really starting to take off. So we're really excited about that. So that's all part of the revenue of Weed Man. Turfbot is completely separate. We've really treated that as a separate brand, but Weed Man and Mosquito Hero. So definitely growth there. Looking to add on other services. We haven't been in the tree and shrub at Weed Man, so looking to add that. So that'll be part of our growth. What we have been able to do because of what we've done in Canada, remember what my story before we got on was, we became the largest multi-unit of Des, the founder, way back when. We have really developed systems and processes for our franchisee to mirror exactly what we've done. We've got one of our US franchisees, the Kurth Group, they're going to be $41 million lawn care business. And they've done it through, greenfield and multi-units and virtual and the technology and whatnot. So taking our existing franchise core and showing them how to be very effective at multi-units and adding that concept to them. We've done very, very well with that. And then bringing on new franchisees and continuing to, so for us, it's just this flywheel of making sure our franchisees are growing their top line, but really focused on their bottom line so that they continue to grow, acquire more territory. We haven't gotten into the acquisition. I think we've done 1 or 2 big acquisitions, meaning outside of Weed Man. And that's something that we may or may not look at. That's something we're going to work on this summer to see what it looks like. Certainly there's a lot of activity, so I don't know if we can compete with some of the big M&A guys out there, but looking at different opportunities and, going into a greenfield and maybe doing an acquisition just to get started. It's funny, had you asked me 4 years ago, True Green was this big, audacious, huge company in front of me. And 2 years ago, somebody said, wow, the way you guys are growing, like, is True Green's in your site? And I was like, oh, no, like, they're so big. Like, they're just awesome. They're incredible. They're the largest in the industry. And then watching our growth and seeing the opportunities and looking at the gaps and playing in the weeds. And I'm like, maybe we could do this. And for the first time in my career, I'm like, yeah, why not True Green? Why not?
I'll put this in front of you. They're owned by private equity. Why not buy them?
True. Hey, you know what? In our industry, somebody was telling me in the top 50, there's only 3 of us left that aren't private equity.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? 3 of us. That's
private equity has just been so aggressive in lawn and pest. The last 2 years have just been incredible how aggressive they've been.
Yeah.
But what it's good for the lawn care industry if you're a seller, because it's finally lawn care is getting the respect and the values are being driven up, whereas pest has been there for many years. And so it'll be kind of nice. But if you're a buyer, not so good, right?
No.
So,
right.
Well, it drives prices up. But the thing I like, and there's absolutely, I think there's a market for you guys on the acquisition side, because I would feel really good about what happens after the sale, knowing that it's going to an owner-based company, a franchise. And even just listening to you talk about the support on the backside, like, it's not just we're going to toss this thing out in the water and just, they can deal with it now. So there absolutely is a market there. But Jennifer, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I have very much enjoyed our conversation. While we were talking, I was digging into looking at robotic mowing. I'm like, man, my brain's all over the place. So it's been kind of fun listening to you and what you guys are doing. It's really exciting and very impressive. And so I just want to say thank you for coming on board and
thanks so much. Is there any, are you trying to reach potential franchisees, or is there a way to contact you? Is that something that we can help you with our audience?
Visit us at weedmanfranchise.com for sure. And if, we're not in your area, reach out to us. We'd love to, make sure, one of the things that we do through the awarding process is to make sure the fit is right. Like, I know it sounds like platitudes, but our franchisees are so amazing. They really are. And it's been such a joy to work with them, and finding this fit is not just something we say. We really need to find people that fit for us, and we fit for them, and we can make them profitable. If we can't, then there's no point in joining us. But those are the types of companies that we really want to go after. So give us a call. I love talking to people. I love people. And would
somebody with a pest control company who wants to add lawn care, would that be a good, or is it just somebody who
anybody
business? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Pest control is great because you can capitalize on your customer list.
Yeah.
And we know how to do that. We've gotten quite a few pest control companies that have joined us. We have golf course superintendents that have joined us. We have people from, corporate America join us. So there is a lot of opportunity in this industry, and especially as an add-on business. I mean, you can capitalize on some of the efficiencies with your team and add us on for sure.
That's
Terrific.
Give me a call.
That's great.
Terrific.
Do it. We'll
You
do it.
bet.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much. Just a reminder, all the resources and topics we talked about today is available on the podcast website, pmpindustryinsider.com. Just take a look under show notes. A summary of this show will be on that website as well. And with that,
Hey,
Jennifer, thank
Donnie,
you so-
did we
Yeah.
mention our sponsor?
oh no, go ahead, and then we'll finish. up.
Okay, so this podcast is sponsored by Cold March by Workwave. If you are looking for digital services, go to coldmarch.com. And with that, I think
We're out.
We're out of here. Thanks
See ya.
so
Thanks
much.
again, Jennifer. Bye now.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.